Happy birthday, Nibbler! After a visit to the vet, Leela learns that Nibbler is, ostensibly, 5 years old, so the gang decide to throw him a birthday party. Jealous that the cute little animal is getting more attention than him, and aiming to impress his friends, Bender puts his all into baking the best, most elaborate cake for the party that he possibly can. However, when Nibbler devours the entire cake before anyone else can see it, an enraged Bender flushes Leela's poor pet down the toilet. Leela is distraught, but Bender is unfeeling. To rectify this, the professor reveals his latest invention, a microchip that will enable Bender to experience empathy. Now forced to experience Leela's emotions, Bender is unable to withstand their mutual grief and dives into the sewers to find Nibbler. Fry and Leela shortly follow to rescue Pet and Robot both, and are soon reunited with Bender, and so the trio set off to find Nibbler. In the dark, dank depths of the New York sewer system, they encounter a band of horrible mutants. Thought to be little more than an urban legend, but in fact very real, the mutants have lived in the sewers for generations, and have even built a functioning, albeit filthy, society. In the end, they're far more friendly than expected, and warn our wayward heroes of the legendary El Chupa Libre, a foul beast said to stalk the sewers and devour anything it comes across. Putting two and two together, Leela concludes that El Chupa Libre may in fact be Nibbler. At last, they have a lead. The mutants, however, are less enthused. Horrified at the possibility that these three surface dwellers unleash the scourge of El Chupa Libre upon them, they kidnap the trio and tie up Fry and Leela as a sacrifice to the beast. As the sun sets up on the surface, El Chupa Libre comes. Slowly from the shadows, the monster approaches, a massive, indescribable thing with savage eyes and sharp in tooth and claw. Even worse, it has Nibbler! With Fry and Leela tied up, Bender is the only one who can save him now. Alas, due to the empathy chip, he's caught in the vice-like grip of Leela's fear for her beloved pet, and unable to act. The only way to rescue Nibbler from a grisly fate is for Leela to stop caring about him. Thankfully, she has the greatest teacher ever, Bender. After mere moments of his coaching in the ways of selfishness, Leela is able to care little enough about Nibbler for Bender to fight El Chupa Libre, flushing it down into the undersewer, never to return. After receiving thanks from their new mutant friends for freeing them from the creature, the trio return home, reunited with Nibbler. The professor removes the empathy chip, leaving Bender, having learned absolutely nothing from the experience. Hey, not every story has to conclude with some grand epiphany. Welcome to Space Podcast 3000, where the future is in the past. Alright, hello. Welcome back to Space Podcast 3000, now Season 2.
Yay, Season 2!
We're back, baby!
Hell yeah. So, we actually now have a Patreon where you can listen to new episodes a week early, including episode 16 right now. Stay tuned to the end for details. In the meantime, along with our Season 2, we have Futurama's Season 2. Which, if I remember correctly, it started airing in 2003 with 19 episodes, which was a longer run than Season 1's 13.
It always seems like later seasons, they either are shorter or longer than the first one.
Generally, the first season is, when you haven't tested the waters, when it's a new project, a lot of times they're not sure if it's going to be successful, but Futurama did well enough so that, yeah, sure, give us more episodes. Of course, there's some seasons that are greenlit before the first episode's even aired, so...
Yeah, well, it really just comes down to however many episodes, the network ordered 13 for Season 1, 19 for Season 2, though, as we've established before, they split things up weirdly for airing. But we're going with the production order here, so Season 2, Episode 1, I second that emotion.
I believe the introduction of the mutants.
Yeah, this was the first episode with the sewer mutants.
I freaking love these guys. These guys are so funny.
I like them. They're cool.
And they they're not self-loathing either. They're just kind of like, they accept that they live underground and stuff sucks, but they find joy where they can, which I think is a very positive sort of thing.
Yeah, they don't exactly love their circumstances, but they make do with what they have.
Yeah, they tolerate it because they know that if they're moping all the time, that's not really going to change things either. So they might as well enjoy what they can.
I mean, that's just life. I mean, have you ever heard of the hedonic treadmill? Because, like, that's an actual thing. It's basically this philosophical concept that people have a baseline level of happiness with their life, and, like, if something really good happens and your circumstances suddenly improve dramatically, you're going to be thrilled for a while, but then eventually you adapt to it and it becomes the new normal, and it stops bringing you as much joy, and you just kind of return to where you were before. And the opposite is also true. Things, like, suddenly get significantly worse, and, you know, you stress out over it, and you get depressed, and it just mope, and then eventually, again, you just kind of get used to it. And, you know, it's just, that's life. And, I mean, I don't know how accurate this is, but this is an actual concept.
I feel like at a certain point, it's like, stop trying to justify putting me in a shitty position and help me. I that seems like the kind of thing that someone could easily misinterpret as a way of arguing that you don't need nice things to be happy. That means we don't need to pay you a living wage. It's like, fuck off.
Oh, absolutely. In fact, counter to that, there is, in fact, there have been studies that have found that money can, in fact, buy happiness up to a point.
Yeah,
where,
exactly.
Like, being financially secure, you will just straight up be happier than if you aren't. It's only, like, once all of your needs are met and, like, I don't remember what the exact number was, but they measured a point where, like, after that point, increasing your income, money no longer buys happiness.
Yeah, your general emotions may, return to, an average. However, like, mental health and even physical health, you'll be in a much better place.
Yes, welcome back to Space Podcast 3000, where it always goes back to talking about late-stage capitalism.
That's the world we live in! Anyway, so... I love the cold open of this episode where we have just Glagnar's human rinds, which... That is such a weird concept, but in a world where you have aliens and, whatnot, I'm not hugely surprised that they would make a joke like this.
It may not even necessarily be human, it may just be a term.
Or it could just be imitation human.
Right.
Although I think I've heard cannibals say that, like from what I've heard, I think, like, there have been cannibals who said that human tastes kind of like tuna. Although, obviously, I can't personally confirm this.
I would be worried if you could.
I mean, I also could be wrong. I might be misremembering. Didn't you, TZ, say that you thought you had heard that it was, like, pork?
I heard it was pork. I've heard other sources say it would taste like veal. So, it's one of those things where you really don't want to know the answer.
Maybe it tastes like chicken, because everything tastes like chicken.
Right.
I mean, that's not wrong. Gator and octopus I've both had, and they both kind of tasted like chicken.
I wouldn't say that about octopus, but...
Yeah, me neither. The texture, at least, is very different.
Oh, yeah.
It also can depend on how it's cooked as well.
True. So we also have this episode first establishing Bender's fear of getting mauled by the can opener, which a later episode will run with.
And of course it attracts him with a magnet too, so I'm sad we didn't get to see him singing any songs.
Oh, we'll get that next time.
Nibbler actually bites his shiny metal ass.
Yeah, I'm surprised they didn't do that sooner.
Well, it only took him 15 episodes.
He kind of deserves it.
And then, of course, we go into the vet's office scene, which is brief, but it has a lot of great jokes.
Yeah, a lot of really great... I like the one with the two-headed dog.
Yeah, remember, Rover gets the pill and Pepper gets a suppository. That's great. Yeah, the man holding a cat and the cat woman holding a tiny man. and like at the counter there's a guy with this pet. I've heard people claim that this thing is supposed to be a rust monster from Dungeons and Dragons, but I don't see it. It looks less to me like a rust monster and more like someone who hasn't opened a monster manual in like 5 years trying to draw a rust monster from memory. Which, I mean, for all I know, might actually be what happened here.
It's cool that the vet has experience with such a wide array of animals. Because I know if you have even, it could even be just a rabbit, it could be hard to find a vet that knows how to deal with that sort of thing.
Well, I've never really had anything but a dog, so I couldn't speak to that.
And I can understand it, but a lot of times you would have like kind of a specialist for that specializes in particular species. But like with doctors, I believe a lot of vets can kind of be like general practitioners with a specialty in particular animals.
True. So with this vet and like counting the rings on Nibbler's tooth, like, so apparently Fry can't count to 5.
Well, it's
the Flanderization continues.
Yeah, well, I mean, it's a good joke because Fry is just so dumb, but it kind of plays on what we know about Nibbler in the for later episodes. That is, and are we getting into spoilers? Because
animals do mature very quickly, typically. Small ones, at least.
Yeah, but I mean, they could be misinterpreting the number of rings, or they could be they could be saying that Nibbler is incredibly old, and Fry's like, look how many things there are, but maybe he sees these things as not rings or years, but like eons or something.
Or it has nothing to do with his age at all.
Yeah,
that also seems likely. Although I do have a question. How does the vet saying Nibbler is 5 years old lead to a birthday celebration right that day? Like, why do they assume his birthday is that exact day and not, say, weeks or months ago? Like, all they know is he's 5, not that he's 5 as of today.
True, but that probably made them realize that they haven't had a birthday party for him. It's like, oh yeah, this thing has a certain number of years, so let's start having birthday parties now. We have to make up for lost time.
Just celebrate because why not?
I guess.
Exactly.
Happy unbirthday.
You get 364 unbirthdays a year.
365 on a leap year.
This is true. Makes that year extra special. And then we get the royalty-free birthday song.
Which is... I get why they changed it. This was going on at the time where they were trying to fight over the rights to that song.
Yeah, for those who might not be aware, the well-known Happy Birthday song was actually under copyright until 2015.
Yeah, like in Metopia, game that came out on the 3DS, they couldn't use like a sung version, the full sung version in the game because of that copyright issue.
Well, at least they made a joke out of it at the end with Fry going, and you smell like one too.
Because, yeah, that would be him just going back to the early 2000s, and that's what he would do after that.
Yeah.
I never liked
whenever that happened, you'd always get the people adding on to it at the end. It's like, and many more on Channel 4.
I hated the cha-cha-chas.
Scooby-Doo on Channel 2.
Same, Eden.
The only person who really adds and many more is my grandma, as she did a few days ago when it was my birthday.
Everyone wish Eden a belated happy birthday.
Yay.
So, of course, one line I have to point out is Leela saying to Bender, this time, if someone's going to jump out of the cake, make sure you put them in after you cook it. This time? Bender has killed someone this way before.
Well, obviously. Bender is clearly a sociopath, which we really do get to see in this episode, because he seems even more than usual.
I doubt it's his first murder either.
Oh, of course, this isn't his first rodeo, but I mean, we have him laughing his ass off at terrible news of people dying on the news, and
cackling madly as he puts down rat poison.
Yeah. Of course, this is exaggerated in this episode, for the plot.
Yeah.
Yeah, but I mean, it's weird because Nibbler has some pretty, not specifically Nibbler, but Leela has some really great dark humor about Nibbler. It's like, Nibbler used to love to eat puppies.
Yes. I mean, that's just the way things are with carnivores. They're going to eat other animals. Like, a snake owner is going to be buying mice to feed them to their snake.
Oftentimes they buy frozen thawed, but still.
Yeah, that doesn't really change the fact that, they're doing this. Like, it's got to be the same way with Leela buying puppies for Nibbler. Just, hey, that's what you got to do when you own a carnivorous pet.
Yeah, well, we do see her buying just like canned food that comes in a big giant tub, but still.
Yeah, I don't know if she would buy puppies, except maybe as a rare treat because they're expensive. It's probably more he eats people's dogs while he's being taken for a walk.
Yeah,
I'd buy that. So we have Bender cooking with third and third and third. What's the other third?
Pure milk fat.
Just a big chunk of...
Oh, gross.
It's almost butter at that point. But yeah, it's nice to see Bender's cooking brought up again.
And he actually washed his hands, which is surprising.
Well, the cooking's gonna remain a thing for the rest of the series, so...
Yeah, but it's still good to see it come back.
Yeah, this show has always kind of had a bit stronger continuity than, say, The Simpsons.
Right, yeah. I mean, the only really big continuity thing that The Simpsons has had is that Lisa has always been a vegetarian ever since she became one.
Yeah, and apparently that was, like, a condition of...
Paul McCartney.
Where, like, yeah, that was a... But it was his, like, condition for appearing in that episode that Lisa remained a vegetarian after that.
That's interesting.
At least that's what I've heard.
Yeah, that's what I heard too, and, like, surprisingly, they went through with it.
I mean, it's not that big a deal, vegetarianism can be a drastic diet change. However, you still have a lot of other protein options as opposed to veganism.
Of course, but considering the continuity kerfuffle that is The Simpsons, it is rare that something like that would continue. The other kind of thing they did was with Barney quitting drinking.
Or Maud's death.
Yeah, Maud's death.
Apparently they've actually brought her back for a couple episodes in more recent seasons where they worked out the issues with the voice actress, so they've, like, had her reappear in flashbacks. And there was one episode that I happened to see that was really brutally affecting, where one of Flanders' kids, which one was the younger one? I can never keep their names straight.
I think Todd.
But yeah, maybe. But, like, he has this nightmare and he realizes he can't remember his mom's face. And it's a heartbreaking episode. Like, I have only seen a few episodes of Modern Simpsons, but of the ones I've seen, that is one of the rare really good ones.
I think I've only really seen, like, the Halloween special with Edgar Allan Poe's Nevermore.
Oh, that was, like, the first one.
Yeah, that was the original Treehouse of Horror. Maybe if we finish Futurama, we can do a similar podcast with The Simpsons, but that's a long ways off.
That would be long. That's like, 700 episodes at this point? There's almost as many as there are Pokemon.
I mean, we wouldn't need to worry about running out of material.
We'd have to worry about finishing it before we die.
But yeah, the Modern Simpsons and the later seasons of Futurama, which, I mean, we'll get to that eventually, seem to have the same issue where when they're trying to be funny, they often get cringe-inducing, but it's when they go for something heartwarming that it works out the best.
Well, the key for making humor is you try to be funny without making it forced. With Futurama, it does have a lot of forced humor, and there's a lot of ways that things are presented. Like, they have the goose laxative. It's like, why goose laxative? I guess they just wanted a funny word to have on that bottle. But then he actually uses the bottle, so, like, obviously they knew that this was going to come into play, so they could have had anything in that bottle. They could have had nothing on that bottle, but by adding a little bit of something there, it adds interest. It's more than just being a blank bottle.
I doubt geese need a laxative, considering what a mess they make parks.
Yeah, which I'm sure is part of the joke, that goose really do not have any trouble with needing laxative.
I grew up in a house where we had a pond in our backyard, and geese are assholes.
Oh,
Oh,
yeah,
yeah.
absolutely.
Yeah, like, that was the reason we got a dog, specifically to, like, keep the geese off of our lawn by, like, scaring them. And it was really effective. Like, our dog would just chase after these geese, chase them back into the pond, and then just come back. He was a very good boy.
Yeah, my bus stop is near like a small park with a creek, so there's always a bunch of geese there, and occasionally a heron, but some days the sidewalks are a complete mess, so I have to be careful.
Oof.
Oof.
So yeah, you can imagine how much of a mess goose laxative would make.
Yeah. So we should probably get back to the episode here in question. Honestly, I think Bender flushing Nibbler down the toilet is just straight up crossing a line. Like, that is outright animal abuse.
Yeah.
Well, knowing what we know about Nibbler, he's fine. I even not knowing how the episode turns out, just kind of knowing that Nibbler is much hardier than he comes off as.
Yeah, but Bender didn't know that.
Although I don't really think it's quite been established at this point just how strong Nibbler. I know actually it has, because we see him in the first episode easily taking out that entire group of animals. So I think it's kind of assumed that the audience knows that Nibbler's going to be okay.
I mean, obviously Nibbler's going to be okay, because, like, it would be a very different kind of show otherwise.
No, but even if you didn't know that he ends up fine in later episodes, we've seen Nibbler go through some major abuse in the past, or show that he is much stronger and more capable than he appears with his little diaper and running around.
That's true. That doesn't really change what Bender did, though.
Yeah, there's still ill intent behind his intent.
Well, to be fair, he did eat Bender's cake, and he made that trying to actually be nice. Like, Bender was actually trying to be nice, then Nibbler ruined it. So he's like, I'm trying to be nice to you, and I don't even get credit for being nice, so screw you. I understand. You can definitely see that as a motivation.
I guess, but, like, you don't do nice things for the credit. You do it because it's the right thing to do.
You're not
to be
Bender.
fair, this is Bender. Yeah.
But still, like, flushing him down the toilet, essentially attempted murder, is a lot. Like, there are other things he could have done. He could have just tossed Nibbler outside,
Throw him
run
out the
away.
window.
Yeah, it is extremely disproportionate.
That is a really strong toilet, though.
Yeah.
So, there's a joke in, a following scene with the professor grabbing Bender's head and just like, I need to tinker in it. Why not just use a potted plant? I don't typically enjoy pee jokes, as we've well established by this point, but I really like this because I'm just a sucker for wordplay.
Yeah, wordplay is just great, period.
I just thought it was weird because they had just kind of done the toilet thing. Which, it wasn't necessarily a toilet joke, but they were kind of still in toilet-adjacent territory.
I guess. I didn't really notice that.
I'm guessing it's just me that thought about that.
Possibly.
But yeah, we have Bender being forced to feel the emotions of others. So this is, I could definitely see it as a sci-fi plot because like he's a robot and he has empathy and he's being forced to have empathy, which is a standard thing. But normally it's that the robot doesn't understand empathy. It's like, no, Bender understands it. He just doesn't like it.
Yeah, more or less. Bender in this episode seems to just have outright disdain for other people.
It's fairly standard, but it is dialed up a bit more in this episode, yeah.
Yeah, it's definitely played up a lot more than usual for the sake of the plot. But like, it's interesting that they talk about the whole like sewer gator myth. Where did that even get started?
I don't know, New York?
Yeah, I heard it got started in New York, where they had like flushed the gators down the sewer, but it's like, are gators a really common?
All right, I need to look this up.
a really common thing to have as a pet and you don't like? I would imagine it kind of combines with flushing a pet that you don't like down the toilet and then it stays alive.
Sewer alligator stories date back to the late 20s. In most instances, are contemporary legend based on reports of alligator sightings in unorthodox locations, in particular New York City. Though escapees and former pets may survive for a short time in New York sewers, longer-term survival is not possible due to low temperatures in the bacteria and human feces. Sewer maintenance crews insist there is no underground population, even though that is exactly what someone trying to hide an underground population would say.
Well, if there actually were gators, I'm sure we would see a big impact because we're adding an apex predator into an unfamiliar environment. I mean, just look at what the Burmese pythons did to Florida.
Also, so apparently there was a similar myth in the 1850s about feral hogs living in the sewers of Hampstead, London.
Were there 40 to 80 of them?
God damn it.
Yeah, I was going to say that, but I didn't remember the numbers. Thank you.
Okay, so apparently the basis of the first accounts of sewer alligators came with Teddy May, the commissioner of sewers at the time in I think it was New York? Yeah, in New York City. So this commissioner of sewers, but it has been suggested that they were just entirely fictitious, created by this dude in his interviews. I don't know why, but as best as I can find, that's the origin of the myth. Interesting, but I mean, this had nothing to do with anything.
Just making it up for shits and giggles.
I guess.
Yeah, well, he's like that guy that tried to convince New York that they needed to cut off Manhattan and sew it on the other way.
What?
Yeah, he did this. He was like a con artist that he was trying to raise money for this thing and then just kind of run off with the money. But it was this thing that Manhattan was sinking, so they needed to cut the end off and connect it again back with the tip. And he had like these plans and everything to do it. And he got a surprising number of people to back him before someone came in and was like, "What the fuck are you talking about?"
Again, what?
However, that's like a con. It's purposefully lying to get money.
Yeah, for personal gain. I mean, the only reason I could think of for Teddy May, Commissioner of Sewers, which is such a weird freaking title to have, I'm just gonna say that now. The only reason I can think of for him to, like, make up something like that is, like, if he wanted to get them to increase the budget to his department, but I don't know, the article doesn't say. So anyway, moving along, sewers, the sewer mutants. I do really like the sewer mutants. They have some very creative designs.
The designs are great. I also really like the aesthetic of the sewer world. I mean, yeah, they live underground. They live in this shithole, quite literally. But I like the design of their sewer town. I guess I just really like that idea of it kind of like being built out of junk, but also kind of having this interesting, unique look to it. And this kind of like cobbled together thing where they make do with what they have. So I just really like the aesthetic of that sort of thing. Not just in Futurama, but when it's used in like other stuff. Like, I really like the design of Blighttown in Dark Souls, which is kind of built the same way. I hate going through it, but I like the visual design of it.
And it's pretty advanced for what they have. I mean, they have multiple functional water wheels.
Yeah.
And they also have a giant toilet going down to the sub sewer.
Well, I think that was there to begin with.
Yeah, well, you know, their society is oddly functional, given the circumstances. I do really like the line from that one sewer mutant. I think they said his name was Dwayne.
Yeah.
Perhaps your civilization is merely the sewer of an even greater society above you. Because that is some ending of Men in Black 2 shit, and it makes just as much sense here. That is none, as Leela immediately points out.
Like, no, we're on the top, sunlight and everything.
Yeah, it's like, did you ever see Men in Black 2?
Yes, it was not really a movie you need to see more than once, but...
Yeah, it's like there was that whole subplot in that, like the running joke in that movie about like the city of aliens inside the agent's locker, and how like they seem to believe that that's the whole world and this whole thing, and like, and at the end of the movie it's like, you really should let them out of there, and it's like it would destroy their minds to know that, and then he like opens a door and it's like our universe is just inside a closet and some bigger thing. It's like that doesn't make any sense whatsoever, and like that's how I feel about Dwayne's suggestion here. It just there's no logic to it. It just does not track.
That movie also had a giant toilet in it.
Although it's not quite what we're talking about here, but more developed countries have been shipping off their trash to poorer places just to get rid of it, and it's not great.
It is not, no. And actually that segues nicely, because like after this, the mutant girl is just about the surface. She's like, it must be wonderful, and men are just like, yeah, our society is pretty
Well, again, hedonism treadmill, you're used to it, so you don't realize how good it is.
I mean, I would just say it's at best, especially nowadays.
Less stinky.
The world is on fucking fire.
It
yeah,
is.
pretty much.
The world is on fire, and no one with the power to do anything about it cares.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, is honestly a pretty charitable description.
At least we don't have any gender reveal parties going haywire yet this year.
Yet. I mean, we've still got several months to go. So I love the joke in the Mutant Library where Bender comments that it's nothing but crumpled porn and Ayn Rand. Absolutely a well-deserved takedown.
Yeah. That is where Atlas Shrugs belongs.
I mean, have you read Ayn Rand?
Part of it. Like, I actually seeked it out in high school to, like, read. It was a thick fucking book, too.
Mm-hmm. Well, she's done shorter books, but, like, they all have this same problem where she has this uncanny ability to take the characters who would be heroes and the characters who would be villains in pretty much any other story and switch them around and somehow believe that this is a good thing to do and the proper way that things should be. And it is just so bizarre. Like, if you actually try to pick apart what is going on in Atlas Shrugged and what it's trying to say, it falls apart like a house of cards.
My biggest pressing memory of reading Atlas Shrugged is that there's like 3 pages where they just describe a watch.
It is that kind of book.
Yeah. And I'm like, holy crap. This is a thick fucking book, too. It is padded as hell.
I mean, I've read long books. I read the uncut version of Stephen King's The Stand, which is more than 1,100 pages. But you would never see me get through Atlas Shrugged to the end. Like, I find Ayn Rand entertaining in just how incredibly bizarre her worldview is, but not that far. Like, it does not entertain me enough to get through that whole thing.
What other books do you think would have made it down there by now? I'd say Twilight.
The creators like to make jokes about tech war.
Yeah, tech war, probably. 50 Shades of Grey.
Yep.
The art of Donald Trump's The Art of the Deal.
Yeah. I mean, so I do volunteer work at a non-profit. It's called a book bank. It's basically kind of like a used bookstore, but everything's free. People just donate whatever old books, gently used. Like, we won't take anything that's torn up. And, we short them, shelve them. Anyone can just come in and help themselves. And on our shelf of social sciences and politics books, we have a book by Ann Coulter. It has been there for like a year and a half, and no one has taken it. And I am not surprised.
I have seen pictures of like book donation co-ops, and they have built a fort out of 50 Shades of Grey books because they have so fucking many.
Yeah.
It's like, we do not need your donations anymore of these books.
Yeah, I grabbed a copy of Twilight that was being gotten rid of by my local library just for shits and giggles, and I ended up dropping it in a puddle.
Yeah.
Bother picking it up.
I mean, I did, but still, I haven't read it.
Twilight's experiencing a bit of a renaissance lately where people are like reevaluating it and saying like, it's not as bad as the vitriol back then. And yeah, it's not as bad as the vitriol that it got.
Oh, definitely not.
It's still not good.
Her biggest mistake is writing a popular book.
It also just was not very good. Like, it had a really cool concept, but it was such a waste.
Right, yeah.
Yeah. That relationship is not healthy.
Not remotely. So anyway, back on
the
topic.
top of healthy relationships.
So as Dwayne is actually, speaking of healthy relationships, as Dwayne is telling the story of El Chupa Libre, we can see Morris and Munda in the background if you look closely. Which that's interesting because they would not be properly introduced until season 4, and yet they had a cameo all the way back here.
Well, that's great for continuity porn. That's like knowing that they had this stuff planned.
Yeah.
That, or they just grabbed some background characters and decided to develop them, since they already had designs.
I don't know, because their designs, they clearly do look like they would be.
Although it's interesting how Munda has regular arms here, not tentacles. So that aspect of her design was, must have been added later.
Maybe she mutated later.
Can a mutant mutate again?
I believe so.
I mean, in this series, I'm not sure. So that's all my notes. Did either of you have anything else to add?
Well, the whole thing about El Chupa Libre, which is obviously a takeoff of the Chupacabra from South American mythology, which I looked it up, and Libre is gibberish. It doesn't really mean anything, but Chupacabra is the goat sucker. Is the specific translation of that. So I thought Libre might be something else. I don't know what Libre might have a root in.
They could have called it, gator sucker, since they said it would eat the crocs.
Yeah, what's the Latin name for crocodile or gator?
I studied Latin for 2 years in high school, and I could not tell you.
What about, lizard or reptile?
I can look it up, one sec. I mean, it would not be properly conjugated, but...
No, but...
Oh, sucus.
El Chupasucus?
Probably. I think it's sucus, because of, I know, the ancient crocs and stuff.
Maybe they wanted to kind of use a phrase that sounded a bit like nibbler to kind of plant the red herring that El Chupa Libre is actually nibbler. But that makes no sense. If Nibbler had just been flushed recently, they wouldn't have this legend yet.
I mean, it could be a red herring, and also the Latin for crocodile, as it turns out, is just crocodili.
Oh.
Yeah, so...
We could still go with Chupasucus.
I suppose.
Like Dinosucus. I really like dinosaurs.
Yes. I mean, dinosaurs are cool. I mean, if you did not have a phase as a child where you were obsessed with dinosaurs, what kind of child were you?
Yeah, right. If you're either into dinosaurs or you really into horses.
The two genders, dinosaur kids and horse kids.
But, I have some notes on the, with Leela deciding to think selfishly.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I think, that's, while not in this particular way, you should be willing to be selfish sometimes.
This is true. You do need to think about yourself sometimes, too.
You do deserve that Toblerone.
Yeah, I mean, it goes even beyond just self-care and deserving things. Going back to the Latin, there's an old Latin proverb that I really like. Medicae curate ipsum, or Doctor, heal thyself. Essentially, the idea being that even if all you care about is helping other people, you can do that a lot more effectively if you're taken care of.
Right.
Makes sense, yeah.
I need to learn that.
Yeah, so there are benefits to selfishness. Like, selfishness and selflessness, in either one in excess at the expense of the other, can be pretty harmful. Like, definitely care about other people, but not at the expense of your own well-being. Like, do not run yourself into the ground.
Yeah.
But, we're getting heavy again.
Yeah. Welcome to the entire point of this freaking podcast.
Well, so, yeah, my thoughts on this episode as a whole. Decent episode. The story and concept are really interesting, but it kind of conflicts a little bit with prior characterization, where Bender does, in fact, care about the others. Like, yeah, he delights in human suffering, but he's always genuinely cared about his friends, at least.
Yeah, I mean, he's a robot, he's a homicidal robot, and of course there is this kind of joke about robots not caring about the humans, but they just kind of turn that up to 11 in this case, and Bender is even more so along that path. But of course, there's plenty of other robots that are much more sympathetic, because robots are just kind of there, which has so many cool designs in this series.
I think that Leela as well, maybe not to the same extent, was exaggerated in her behavior.
Yeah, that too. Like, she being really uncaring about Bender when Nibbler bites him, and the whole, not you, not even asking him if he's alright, that also seemed a little out of character.
Yeah, and her attitude towards Amy was more negative.
Well, to be fair, we don't really get her internal monologue all that often, so it's possible that she's always thinking this sort of thing. I mean, really everyone has negative thoughts towards other people, especially when they themselves are in a bad place.
Right, exactly.
True, but it's not something that's typically brought to light,
Yeah, I think what's important is less what you think and more what you say and act on, but that's a completely different issue. So,
I suppose that will do it for this episode. This was a long episode. Welcome back to Season 2.
I mean, it's fitting that the debut of a season would be a longer episode, but, I mean, I guess we just had a whole lot to say about this one. It's an interesting episode.
Thank you for listening to Space Podcast 3000. Your three voices of the future are Nova Altman, Doug Hancox, and Eden Valerie. The theme music is Voxel Revolution by Kevin MacLeod. You can hear more episodes of Space Podcast 3000 on YouTube or at soundcloud.com/SpacePod3K. You can support the show and listen to new episodes a full week early at patreon.com/SpacePod3K. Follow us on Twitter at SpacePod3K. Be sure to join us next time as the Planet Express crew hire on a new member in Brannigan. Begin again.